I'm Michael Mansfield. I'm 39 years old. I'm here at BYU, Idaho. I'm majoring in construction management, and I'm getting ready to graduate in December of this year.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Wow. So did you go back to school, or have you been going to school? I don't know. What's that been like?
Well, I'm a little bit older, you know. I actually found the Book of Mormon when I was in prison in 2017, and when I got out of prison, I came to the church, and then did the Pathway program, and then got enrolled at BYU Idaho, and then came to BYU Idaho. So,
okay.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, perfect. So tell me a little bit about your story and how you found the 12-step addiction recovery program.
Okay. So lived in darkness and addictions for nearly 20 years of my life. Started smoking cigarettes at 13, drinking and smoking marijuana at 14 and 15, using cocaine at 16, and was addicted to methamphetamines from 17 to 33 years old. In and out of the legal system for 15 years. I've spent maybe about 4 years of my life incarcerated. Been to drug treatment. I've done a 30-day, a 6-month, a year-long drug treatment. Every time I'd go to drug treatment, I would go back to the streets as soon as I got released. I would say, you know, I've been to the psychiatric unit. So I was addicted to drugs, lust, pornography, gambling, lying, stealing, you know, you name it, anything to do to feed my addictions. And I ended up in prison for the second time in 2017, and that's where I went to a church service. It wasn't LDS, but and I was given a King James Bible, and I just remember going back to my cell and reading the King James Bible from front to back in about 3 weeks.
Wow, that's fast. You are a good reader.
And then in early January of 2018, I was walking to my cell one day, and someone asked me if I wanted to read the Book of Mormon, Doctrine and Covenants, and Pearl of Great Price. And I looked at it, and it had gold writing on it, just like this King James Bible I just read. And I went back to my cell, and I started reading about Alma the Younger and the sons of Mosiah living in sin and iniquity, being visited by an angel of the Lord, them repenting of their sins, you know, being reborn and becoming an instrument in the hands of God. And I just remember sitting in my prison cell, filled with so much love, peace, joy, and happiness, a feeling I'd never experienced in my whole life. And it just gave me the inspiration that I could change my life. And, you know, that's where there was a seed planted in my heart, you know, from reading the Book of Mormon, and I just continued to nurse that seed each and every single day. And after I read it for the very first time, I started reading a chapter in the morning and a chapter in the evening, and I continue to do it, you know, to this day. And so it's coming up on 6 years.
That's amazing.
You know,
that's quite the story.
So when I went to prison, or while I was in prison, they sent me to a camp, and that's where, once I got to the camp, I started attending Sunday school, or no, you know, church services, LDS church services, and the addiction recovery program. And then as soon as I got out of prison is when I attended my first addiction recovery program. I got out on a Tuesday, and I just remember getting out of prison and going to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Olympia, Washington, and I'm sitting in a room with doctors and lawyers and dentists and police officers, and here I am straight out of prison, right? And everybody just showed me so much love and kindness and accepted me for who I was, never judged me for the things that I'd done in my past, and I just came and put everything on the table. And that's when I realized that no matter what walk of life you come from, we all have one thing in common, and that's Jesus Christ. And I'm just so grateful for the experience of going into that, my first addiction recovery program, because everybody just showed me so much love and kindness. And they're some of my best friends to this day.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
so,
really
so
cool.
that was the introduction to me coming to the addiction recovery program. You know, I knew when I got out of prison that I had a drug problem, but I didn't realize, it didn't really click in my head until I started working the steps and learning about, you know, all these, you know, I had a drug problem, but that my drug and my lust and my pornography, my gambling addictions all went hand in hand, you know. And one thing I love about the 12-step program is no matter what the addiction is, no matter what the self-destructive behavior is, it all works, you know, the program helps you find the tools to be able to combat those addictions or self-destructive behaviors.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you went to multiple programs to help you get over your addictions. What was your expectation like going into the 12-step addiction recovery program? Like, did you have high hopes? Were your expectations pretty low that it could actually help you?
Well, when I read the Book of Mormon for the first time in prison, it was like it planted that seed in my heart, and I just continued to nurse that seed. And so when I got out of prison, you know, like I never lived a sober life before, and so I'm living in a clean and sober house. I remember getting out of prison. I didn't even have a car, so I was riding the bus everywhere. I started meeting the missionaries, at my friend's house. I got enrolled in the BYU Pathway program, and the addiction recovery program. And so it was like the church became my support system, and with the addiction recovery program, it was like I started, building a friendship with these people, and, they'd start taking me home, after we had our addiction recovery program meeting, or, I just started developing a relationship with them, and, like, it was all new to me, so yeah, I had high hopes that I could change my life, but one thing that really was so important for me is all the different resources at the church was a part of the church.
Yeah.
So I know how the Book of Mormon made me feel, right? And it just gave me this hope that I could change my life. If these people in the Book of Mormon could be living in sin and iniquity and then them change their lives, why couldn't that happen in my life? So I came out of prison with this, this hope that I could change my life, right? And so it was just like everything was just a key element, piece of the step, but it was like, between going to church, working 40 hours a week, living in a clean and sober house, going to church, self-reliance classes, addiction recovery program, the Pathway program. I didn't have any other time to do anything else,
Yeah.
and everything's gospel, centered, right? And so this is a whole new experience, and I was just so blessed because here I am in the same community that I was once lost in, but like now I'm developing these new relationships with people.
Yeah.
And everybody's showing me so much love and inviting me to their house and inviting me to dinner and, just being my friend. That was just such a huge part of it, and, so I had high hopes getting out of prison, but I had no idea that this is what was going to happen.
Yeah.
And everybody's just been there to support me and meeting the missionaries. And like, I remember getting out of prison and the missionaries, they wanted to do like this little a short story about me, and I could barely speak right in front of the camera, right?
Uh-huh.
And just barely words barely could just come out for maybe a minute, right? And but the Lord's transformed my life and just opened up so many doors, and it's just, this program is inspiring, but my hopes were, the Book of Mormon had given me high hopes, and I just know that it was so important for me to read the Book of Mormon every day, and that's what's really kept me. That's been the huge part of this journey, is I know reading the Book of Mormon every single day. Because I wake up and read the scriptures, it puts me in the right state of mind, and when I go to bed I read my scriptures, and so it just continues to fill my life with hope, and everything else just falls along with it. So
it sounds like God really prepared you coming out, because you did have so many things that would help you.
Yeah.
And so that's really cool, because I feel like, I don't know, I was going to ask you next what that first step was, or what it was like going to the 12-step addiction recovery program, because I feel like a lot of the times people are really nervous and really scared, but did you experience any of that? Because you were truly prepared, it sounded.
Well, yeah, I think everything that I went through in my life, being addicted to drugs and lust and pornography and gambling and all that for so long, in my addictions I lived a fast life, and I didn't have lots of money, but I was always selling drugs or always had some type of money. But then towards the end of my addiction, it got really bad where I was riding a bus to stay warm. I didn't have any money. I was, sleeping in a tent in someone's garage, experiencing homelessness. And I remember before I went to prison in 2017, it was so cold out. I was like, I'm ready to go to prison because at least I'm going to be warm.
Yeah.
And there'd been times where, I contemplated I didn't even want to live, what's the point of me even living, being so lost in my addictions, and that's all I knew. I never experienced the things I'm experiencing now, going to school and having healthy relationships and I never experienced that before, and so I know the Lord has a plan for each and every single one of us, and I know that I went through those trials and tribulations for a reason, because I know that through the gospel, now that I've changed my life through the atonement, that I will be able to help people through my story.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing is what I want to show is the people that are incarcerated, look at what's happened to my life in 6 years, right? And living a life of sobriety. I never thought in my life I would ever be happy without drugs or lust or pornography. I thought that's what made me happy. But that is miserable. That made me miserable. And now to like have the gospel, like this is amazing, you know. And so I'm just happy with life, and like this is all new experience, you know. And so yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's so cool. You do have such an inspiring story. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
So out of the 12 steps within the 12-step program, which one either brought you closer to Christ or was the most impactful to you personally?
Well, you know, I'm going to go with step 3, trusting in God, what we were on it last night. And the reason why I'm going to say that is because I used to put my trust in my addictions to bring me happiness and to bring me comfort and to, you know, it just gave me such a false reality. So really I put my trust in Satan. You know, and every time what would happen, I would end up back in jail, or I'd end up back in rehab, or I'd be going through the same trials and tribulations and didn't understand what was happening, you know. So now to find the gospel, the Book of Mormon, the 12-step program, put my trust in God, like it's limitless. The opportunities and the things that are happening in my life right now, I couldn't in my wildest dreams imagine they would ever happen, but they are, you know, and it's all because I put my faith and my trust in God, you know, and He's opened up so many doors in my life, and like I can see the light now, you know, and am I a perfect person? I'm not a perfect person, but through the atonement, through, you know, recognizing when you make a mistake, through repenting, right? Like, that's what life is all about. And you know, and then what's the greatest gift is sharing that with other people. Because there's no one perfect here on earth. If we were perfect people, there would be no Jesus Christ, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Right? And so we're trying to become like Jesus, right? And so it's like, what a perfect plan for us to be able to learn of Jesus, to become like Jesus. We're still going to make mistakes, but when we make that mistake, to be able to recognize it, to repent, and to take the sacrament that following week and to move forward, you know, and we can overcome any trials and tribulations we're going through, you know. So
yeah, the atonement is powerful.
It is powerful stuff. Yeah,
it's so true. I had a question. It lost my mind. But you talked about trusting in God, and so what moment was there?
Well,
a
hold on.
moment?
That's important too. But I love charity.
Yeah.
Right? Charity, right? So charity is something that, like, okay, so you asked me that question. I'm going to say 3 is important, but 12 is the best, and that's charity. And that's being able to serve and to help other people find that same peace and joy that I felt it and have found in my life through the 12-step program. You know, and so I've had these opportunities to be able to go into the jails in Madison County, Fremont County Jail, and to minister to the inmates in there with the 12-step program. That's what brings me joy. That's where the true joy and happiness comes from, because I can go in there and I can minister and I can share, as a facilitator, I can share my story and give these people hope. You know, and if that's a place where I found the gospel and it changed my life, I know anybody can change anybody's life. And the reason why I like the 12-step program and being able to go into the jails is because they're in a situation where they're taken away from the world. They don't have the drugs. They don't have the pornography. They don't have the lust while they're incarcerated. So what better to open up that Bible, open up the Book of Mormon, read the scriptures, learn of the 12-step program, and grow in the gospel, because that's where it happened in my life, is in prison.
Yeah.
And so, you know, and so charity is the most important, you know, but it takes a while to get there. It doesn't happen right away. You know, but to be able to be there and to be able to share my story and to share the gospel, and I think that's the thing, right? We people want to change their lives, but it's different when they see somebody. If they can see somebody that, look, he changed his life, then automatically, like, it's like seeing is believing, you know. And so it's I mean, 3 is important, but charity is the best, right? The most important, right?
So you talked a little bit about that experience, but has there been moments that have truly, like, humbled you while going into the prison? Like,
humbled me?
Or just maybe reminded you of your past and how far you've come?
So and that's the thing, is I see how far I've come, but that's where I'm at now. It can't stop. If I stop reading the Book of Mormon, if I stop going to the temple, if I stop being a part of the 12-step addiction recovery program, if I stop these things that I have incorporated in my life, I know what can happen.
Yeah.
you can lose your grip and fall. I mean, look at David in the Bible, right? You know, look at. I mean, he defeated Goliath. He had everything, and look at what happened. You know, and the lust of the flesh, right? And so it's like, it's so important to continue to move forward, and that's where like the joy and happiness from being able to share my story and give people hope is like that is so rewarding. That is so rewarding. And I just want people to know that like they can do it. In this program, what's so great about the program is like you will overcome your addictions. No amount of money in the world can take away a drug addiction, a pornography addiction. You can't say, you can't be a full-blown lust addict and say, here's $2 million, take this away from me. It doesn't work like that. You can't say, here's $2 million, take this drug addiction away from me. It doesn't work like that, right? And it's only through our own agency and through the gospel of Jesus Christ where we can implement these teachings, where we can become like Jesus and we can learn of Jesus. And the more we learn of Jesus, the more we're going to walk away from that way of life. The more we're going to repent, the more we're going to understand that like this is possible, you know, because this is a perfect plan, you know. And so, you know, it's humbling, and it's, you know, it's definitely a milestone in my life to have the opportunity to go into the jails. And like for me, I have big dreams. You know, some of my dreams is, you know, like I want to get established wherever I move after I graduate, but I want to get involved in the community and get into the jails and the prisons and get involved in clean and sober housing, where people can transition from clean and sober housing and find a good trade, whether it's being a barber, whether it's working construction, whether it's, you know, working IT, it doesn't matter, you know, like help these people gain some self-worth, you know, help them build their credit, you know, and like everybody can change their life, you know. And I just know that through the gospel, like it's a perfect plan, you know, and it's not easy. I get it, it's not easy, but like the amount of time and effort I put into my addictions, like that led me down to misery, like to put your time and effort into something productive and helping people, like that's amazing. And that's what life is about. Yeah, I love that.
Sounds like you're going to do amazing things, and you already have too, so that's so cool. You talked about, so I'm going to go back a little bit to trusting in God. And so as you know, there are so many temptations in the world today, and Satan is very powerful. So when did you have that realization that you needed to trust in God instead of the adversary, instead of the one who was leading you to those addictions?
So I would say the most pivotal point in everything, it started in the beginning when I read the Book of Mormon. Because I was sitting in a prison cell, in my 6x10 prison cell, and how could I be filled with so much love, peace, joy, and happiness that I'd never experienced in my whole life? Not when I was free, not when I had money, not when I had drugs, not when I had women. Nothing could compare to this feeling sitting in prison. Well, when you're sitting in prison, it's like sitting in the pits of hell. So it's like, I thought to myself, like, Satan had me fooled this whole time. Because how can I be filled with this happiness and joy sitting in prison? From reading the Book of Mormon. So that's when I recognized that Satan was a lie. And that's when I recognized that I had actually been living a life of sin. Because he had me so fooled that the life that I lived, I thought was a normal way of life. And it was normal to me. But I didn't realize I was living a life of sin. And it didn't click in my head until, I read the Book of Mormon. That's what changed it, everything, So, with temptation in the world, like, I know Satan's game through my life experiences. And through the mistakes that I've made. And how can I sit in prison, be in the pits of hell, read the Book of Mormon, be filled with so much love, peace, joy, and happiness, feeling I never experienced in my whole life. And I'm sitting in prison. I knew it was the truth from the very first time I read it. And that's why I think it's so important to, with the 12-step program, no matter what we do, implementing reading our scriptures each and every single day. I don't care if it's a verse in the morning and a verse in the evening. But reading the scriptures every day is what has really, really, really kept me on this spiritual path. And everything else just kind of falls in line, so yeah, I don't know if that answers the question.
No, that does perfectly. Thank you. So this video hopefully will get to reach people who are struggling.
Yes.
And so what advice would you give someone who's struggling in an addiction, might be afraid to go to a program like this?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any words to say to them specifically?
Like, it's okay. We're all imperfect people, and going to the addiction recovery program has been the greatest gift ever, because here I am getting out of prison, coming to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I go into my first addiction recovery program, and everybody accepted me for who I was. The love and the kindness that you're going to find there, the camaraderie, the companionship, like, we're all in this together. And when we realize that, like for me, I'm older, so I understand, like, there's not anybody I'm walking past at school, at the grocery store, that isn't going through some kind of trials and tribulations.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's going through trials and tribulations. Everybody's going through trials and tribulations. So if there's anything I can say about this program, it's okay. We're here to learn. And no matter what the addiction is, you go to the 12-step program, be honest with yourself and start working on it. Does it mean it's going to end right away? No. But put forth that effort and learn and grow, and you'll find peace by coming to those meetings. When you come to those meetings and you get to hear other people sharing their stories, and then you're like, wow, I'm not alone. But it's so easy to isolate yourself and think that you're the only one going through that trial, when really there's not a person you're going to walk past that isn't going through some kind of trial, that isn't going through some kind of addiction or self-destructive behavior, or like dealing with some kind of problem. Everybody has trials. Everybody is going through something. And so with the 12-step program, just being able to go and put things on the table and realize that, wow, I'm not alone. And it's okay. And as I see other people, overcoming their addictions, like, what's it going to do? It's going to give you hope that you can overcome your addiction. And then when you do overcome your addiction, you get some sobriety under your belt. The greatest gift is, guess what? Now you're going to be able to reach out and help the next generation. And help the next generation. And that's where I think this program is so important, because it's like something has to be implemented to change the future, right? And so, of course, we have Jesus Christ, but if we can get people to learn from their mistakes, learn from their addictions, their self-destructive behaviors, and everybody is going through something. I don't care. There's not anybody that's a perfect person, right? And so it's like when people, in this program, you can overcome any trials and obstacles. If you have a spouse that's going through something and they overcome something, like your testimony of what you went through with your spouse is a testimony to help other people. Because how many wives or how many husbands are going through that situation, right? And so it's like this program can really, like helping other people. And I think that's where it's so easy to, some people might overcome their addiction and then it's like they don't give back and serve and help the next person. And that's what's most important, is just helping other people.
Your favorite step?
12.
Yeah, I like that.
And it's a chain reaction. And when, and I don't know how it is, but maybe church culture, there has to, I could see maybe being born in the church, maybe there's shame when you make mistakes. Mm-hmm. But like, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay to make mistakes, and it's okay to, like talk about the mistakes that you've made without feeling shame, and going into this program where like we're all equal no matter what. We're all brothers and sisters in Christ, right? And if we can overcome those trials and tribulations, when we overcome those trials and tribulations through the atonement of Jesus Christ, through the 12-step program, to reach out and help somebody else is the greatest gift ever.
I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that maybe you haven't talked about that you want to talk about?
I don't know. Is there any questions that you have, or?
That was the end of my questions.
We love you, man. It's just amazing. I love.
Yes. You have a powerful story.
Well, it's truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like truth, like it's the basic, simple things that we're taught in the gospel, and that's what's changed your life, and that's what's been changing mine.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's the
stuff.
primary answers.
Yeah, and people think this has to be this certain way or certain. You keep going back. I see you always go back to the scriptures.
Oh yeah.
And I would love to know what are your favorite scriptures that you go back to? You talked
That's a
about
good question.
the story with Alma and stuff. You can grab your phone if you.
Yeah. So we'll go to. I wish I had my scriptures, man.
No, that's all right.
So of course, one of the biggest moments for me, of course, is I'm gonna go to Alma 30. So of course, Mosiah 27 is huge when they're visited by an angel.
Mm-hmm.
But some of the scriptures that really, like, I always go back to, because it's like these scriptures are, like, when I read these scriptures, it was like,
Yeah.
you know, and imagine that it was on it right there.
That's cool.
Mhm. Oh, no. So, come on. Yeah, so if we go to Alma 36. So yeah, and I'm just going to skip a couple verses. They're not in order.
Mm-hmm.
But it says, "Yeah, I say unto you, my son, that there could be nothing so exquisite and so bitter as were my pains. Yeah, and again I say unto you, my son, that on the other hand there can be nothing so exquisite and sweet as was my joy. But behold, my limbs did receive their strength again, and I stood upon my feet, and did manifest unto the people that I had been born of God. Yeah, and from that time even until now I have labored without ceasing, that I might bring souls unto repentance, that I might bring them to taste the exceeding joy of which I did taste, that they might also be born of God and be filled with the Holy Ghost. Yeah, and now behold, O my son, the Lord doth give me exceeding great joy in the fruit of my labors. For in the word which he has imparted unto me, behold, many have been born of God, and have tasted as I have tasted, and have seen eye to eye as I have seen. Therefore they do know of the things which I have spoken, as I do know, and the knowledge which I have is of God. And I have been supported under trials and troubles of every kind, yea, in all manners of afflictions. Yet God has delivered me from prison, and from bonds, and from death. Yet, and I do put my trust in him, and he will still deliver me." So those are the words that touched my heart. Those are the words where, when I read the scriptures, I don't read it so much as a story. I kind of personalize it to what's happening in my life.
Mm-hmm.
So when I read this, obviously they're talking about somebody, but I personalize it to what's going on in my life, and that's what gave me the hope. If I'm reading these in the scriptures, why couldn't that happen in my life?
Exactly.
You know, why couldn't, you know, and I've been supported under trials and troubles of every kind, yea, in all manners of afflictions. Yeah, God has delivered me from prison and from bonds and from death. Why couldn't that happen to me? Right? And so I planted that seed, and I just kept nourishing it. And nourishing it every day. And even though I was in prison, it was like I had the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Gospel Principles. I started cross-referencing things out of the Gospel Principles with the Book of Mormon and the Bible. And, you know, when they sent me to the camp, I'm at this camp, and, you know, they have this whole drawer of nothing but LDS stuff. So I open up this drawer, and I watched some of the, you know, I watched the part of a general conference at the chapel. You know, next thing you know, there's the, you know, the teachings of the prophets.
Yeah.
So I got to read like 5 of those, right? And so I just started like just studying and just, you know, just enlightening myself with the gospel, right? And everything I was reading, it was like, as I'm reading, I'm like, this is it. You know, there's nothing that I ever read where, and it's never happened, there's nothing that I've ever read that said, this doesn't seem right. You know, right? This doesn't, you know, and so, you know, and it's interesting because when I was in prison, it was like, I'm sitting on a top bunk, and I have my Book of Mormon in one hand, and my name's Michael, so it was like, these people would come up to me and they'd be like, "You don't want to be a Mormon, it's a cult. You don't want to be a Mormon." And I know they weren't congregating in the bathroom saying, like, coming together, like, okay, we're going to try to get this guy to stop reading the Book of Mormon. But it was like, it was spiritual warfare in there, right? And so it was like, you know, these people, why would you want to be part of a religion where you can't smoke and have sex and this and that? But I had experienced enough in life that I wasn't going to follow anybody else's lead. Mm-hmm. You know? And so it was like, I had the Book of Mormon in one hand, and here, my name's Michael, so it's like, Archangel Michael is fighting off these spirits with the other hand, right? And so I just remember, like, I'd wake up, read the Book of Mormon in the morning, and then I kind of doze off, and I'd have these visions of me speaking fluently the Word of God in front of like 20 and 30,000 people.
Whoa.
Right? And so I'm like, this is amazing, right? And so those are just the beginning steps, but it's like, it's been line upon line and precept upon precept, and, I could have never imagined that this is where I'd be at now, and all these experiences and the relationships that I've been able to develop, and, to be here at such a good school, to learn and to grow, and like now have all these opportunities to like, all these companies are like, I got all these opportunities to go all over the place, man. So it's amazing.
That is. And I really like what you said, how you apply the scriptures to yourself, because when people disconnect themselves from the scriptures, that's when you think it can never happen to me. But as I've done that too, I've learned that God's the same yesterday, today, and forever. And He is a God of miracles, so He can help you in your life.
For sure.
So I really like that. Thank you so much.